Okay, it is the top of the hour. Hey, um, welcome. This is Diana Sinton. I am right now, what hat am I wearing for this presentation? This is an iGuide virtual consulting office. We are going to be talking today about the UCGIS, GIS&T body of knowledge. We're going to wait for just one more minute for me to start my part of the presentation. Um, As a reminder, this is a regular Zoom meeting, so I thank you for keeping your own microphones muted. Um, we like to have our VCOs be somewhat informal, so there'll be definitely time for question and answer at the end. And this is recorded, so as soon as the file's processed, it'll be up on the iGuide website, and you'll be able to uh, access it from there. Um, and feel free to put comments in the chat. I will not be looking at them at all during this, but as I said, if you need to remember what question you want to ask, put it in the chat. There will be time at the end for questions. So with that, let me switch this presentation. Display settings, swap presenter. Okay, excellent. Of course, now I can't see my Zoom screen, but let's see. Zoom. Yes, now I can see a little bit of my Zoom screen and okay, perfect. I'm gonna actually turn off my video for during the presentation itself. Now I'll leave my video on. All right. Um, Welcome everyone. Again, we're going to be talking about the UCGIS body of knowledge. I'm here speaking on behalf of both iGuide and UCGIS, and we're very grateful to the National Science Foundation for funding our work with iGuide. See, is this going to advance it here? I'm sorry. This is one of those double screen situations. Give me 1 second to make sure I don't click the wrong button here. Minimize. Advance. Fantastic. So the presentation today is largely going to focus on just a brief bit about where we are. There have been a few changes, some of them very recent, like in the last 24 hours. And then a few opportunities for the group here to share a few thoughts about need to knows, things UCGIS is always gathering information about what might be possible with the body of knowledge going forward. And then, as I said before, some time for community discussion. So since 2006, UCGIS has helped support the body of knowledge as a community resource. Many of you on the call are surely familiar with the fact that we started back in the early 2000s. Eventually, it became a paperback book, coordinated also with the American Association of Geographers. We went through a really big first digital transition in 2016. We mounted our very first digital version of the body of knowledge. It happened to go onto a platform at the time, an open source platform called Drupal. It was a good and bad thing. A lot of people really liked the way that it worked for them as users, but on the back end, it was really a nightmare for us. And most importantly for UCGIS, which is a very small nonprofit organization, that version of Drupal that we had it on was going to be deprecated, and we didn't have the funds. We had to figure out how we were going to work on it and change it. So a lot of decisions were made, but we did have it running on our Drupal site until 2023. During those years too, we were going through a lot of conversations about how to manage this resource going forward. Oh, excuse me. One thing is that we knew that we wanted our content to be authoritative, that it would be vetted. We cared a lot about a license. We wanted to be able to have there always be a version of the body of knowledge that would be open to the world, but we also needed to understand how we could control this, we had considered and rejected a completely open wiki idea. In terms of organizing the content, in terms of generation and curation, we went ahead with working very closely with John Wilson at the University of Southern California, who still, after approximately 15, 11 years now, has been the voluntary editor-in-chief of the body of knowledge. And I stepped in as the role of project manager. So this is the way we worked on it from 2016 going forward. This whole idea of having our content be authoritative and vetted. Also, we drew heavily on the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which has that authors contributing individual things. We wanted to be able to have DOIs for the entries so that authors could also receive some credit. And all of the topics are peer reviewed and as, try to keep them as current as we can. Around that same time, this is an important thing for where we are right now, there is a parallel types of activities going on in Europe with which we at UCGIS were, very familiar with, and we were admiring their activities a lot. Under their funded program, EO4GEO, which ran from 2018 to 2022, they were working on their own body of knowledge, originally starting with a digital version of ours, like the digital content that we had first moved to our Drupal site, which contains topics, but not much more, just really topics, titles of topics, and some learning objectives. But the European group worked to expand that. Because of the nature of their funding source, they worked a lot with Earth observation. So that was one of the areas where one of theirs started to diverge from ours very early on. We had a very, very limited area of content coverage in remote sensing from the beginning. It was one of our significant gap areas. But just a couple things I want to point out here about EO4GEO is that they had on the bottom there, you see that they had something called the Living Textbook, which is a platform, an open source platform that was being used at a university in the Netherlands, University of Twente, for supporting their curricular activities. But faculty in the faculty in ITC over in the Netherlands there were working with their body of knowledge to put it in the Living Textbook, which had a lot of things that we liked about that. They also, at the same time, and you'll hear more about that in a second, at the same time, they were also in parallel working with many different developing open source tools that really let you expand and use that content. So it's not just like a dynamic looking at the materials themselves, the Living Textbook. No, how do I mean to say this? The tools that were being developed in parallel, a whole series of open source tools, were really designed to take everything you could do with a Living Textbook, the content from there, and then deploy it further. So we had a contract with UCGIS starting it took us years to sort this out. 2021, I think we might have started. And I know some of the people I worked with are on the call right now. 2021, 2022, the summer of 2023, we finally really, UCGIS invested the money it had been, figuring out, saving, and decided that this was really the route we were going to go. And one of the reasons, there are multiple reasons we did this, and a lot of thought and discussion, and many, many people were consulted and provided their input on this. It allowed us to migrate off of Drupal. It allowed us to put our content into a platform that had a lot of features that we wanted to be able to work with. One of the most important was the idea that we always knew we wanted the platform to be dynamic. We wanted to be able to leverage the working with different ontologies, to build ontologies, to be able to use this in a research way that had never been possible before with our kind of static Drupal, just deliver the content. So at the same time, we had all of these wonderful different open source tools to be able to do things more with. We decided first that we were going to, the content always starts first in the living textbook, and then we were also going to have the search and visualization site be the one of the 6 or so tools that are available. That was the one we were going to work on first because it's one of the most intuitive ones. It allowed people to have an interface that they could get to the content, see what was there. There's a whole workflow behind all of these things, however, and this is really what we've been, where UCGIS has been working on this over the last few years. We completely recognize that it was challenging for users to understand two different platforms, two different interfaces. Um, because we had decided to go with the author scholar model and have a DOI, a single DOI point to content, we had to decide which of the sites the DOI would refer to. Because the search and viz site had static URLs, we were able to, that was the decision that the search and viz site was going to be the first one that people would work with. But at the time, unfortunately, at that time, the search and viz site was not mobile responsive, and that was frustrating for some people. We absolutely, we heard you. We know there was some frustration over the last couple of years. We've been working really hard to work on to address all of these things. At the same time, we've been developing the content. So when we first started in 2020, well, 2016, of the approximately 350 topics that were going to be, it's kind of a good stable number for what we seems to fit with us. It's taken us 10 years to populate all of the 350 or so topics that are ultimately going to be there. We're about 95%. I don't know if John Wilson's on the call right now. I'll ask him later where we are, but I think we're at about 95% that are actually published and available on the website. So it's been this transition of figuring out the platforms and then also at the same time developing content in the background. One of the challenges for us is that to take advantage of all of the different types of open source tools as well, the like 6 different ones specifically I'll refer to, that were available to us in our contract, in our coordination working with our colleagues in Europe. You really needed to have the content be complete in order to take advantage of the functions those did. And until the content completion caught up with everything else, we were always going to be in this kind of leapfrog situation. And you can tell that when, for the research, that people have used the collection of the body of knowledge research, and they say, you can tell from some of the analyses that it's noticeable that when they took a snapshot of our whole collection, that they took it at a certain time when a certain, 10 or 15 key topics were not yet there. So where we are right now, in the last, like starting by summer of 2025, we really knew we had to make some changes, make some decisions. We just couldn't keep up. Really, UCGIS could not continue to support 2 of these, not support 2 of them, not do well with either of them while we were developing the content. So we made a decision at this point, because really all the content lives within the living textbook, within its database, and then there's an export process that puts us over to our different open source tools like the search and viz site. We ended up really focusing on the living textbook because we started working with a developer who had expertise with those tools, specifically with the platform that the living textbook is built on. The living textbook interface for us was not optimal for having it be the emphasis, though. We really liked the search and viz, at least the landing page. So what I'm going to show now is what's been up for the last couple of months. Is we were able to finally get our living textbook to have a little more of a simple interface that at least wasn't as confusing for new users. There are a couple things I want to point out. I am going to stop sharing the PowerPoint in a minute and then show you live version of how to navigate this a little bit. Actually, maybe now's a good time to do that. So I'm going to pull, let's see, here we go, some PowerPoint magic. Let's hope I don't, I'm going to move this screen here. I'm going to stop sharing for one quick second while I do this so as not to do something I don't want to do. I want to put a regular body of knowledge. Okay, now I'm going to start sharing again. Okay, so here's our new living textbooks, our living textbook site with a slightly new interface. It is exactly the same living textbook as it was before. We didn't change anything about anything of the underlying content, but this interface allows first-time users to be able to navigate it a little bit better. We have a search. One of the things we've always liked about the tools that the Europeans had built was the different search. I'm going to go right now and I'm going to go to a new topic that was just published yesterday, our agency and connectivity topic. But I'm just going to type in adjacency here to the adjacency to the main search. Of course, you got to spell it right. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. No, I'm not going to search for that. I'm going to go to the dashboard. No, I'm going to go back to that search. Hold on one second. I absolutely love live demos of something that ought to be the easiest thing in the world. We're going to go to the main search. Right back to here. And I'm going to search for scale. I'm going to blame the head cold problem on why I couldn't spell adjacency. Okay, so at the regular search, what you're going to see that comes up is all of the different topics that in some way have scale in them. The way that this is one of our relatively new topics. The way that the topics themselves look at within the body of knowledge is that we have, as you know, one of the big things that we did was we expanded the length of these over time, but we also have the ability to have a lot of our materials be linked. So one of the things that's important is that we have all of our references are linked, our learning outcomes are all linkable, linked data. We do have the opportunity to do lots of work with an ontology and have people explore different relationships. The one that's here by default, I know it's overwhelming and confusing, but this would be the whole collection. And right here, what we're seeing is any individual topic that is right here. We're looking at our high throughput computing and GIS topic. And you can see that this is within our CP, which would be the computing platforms knowledge area, and it's within a unit of computing approaches. And all of these different types of relationships right now they are just the most basic ones and really defined under this hierarchical approach of the way all of the content in the within the living textbook is organized. We go back 1 minute here now to our, I'm going to close the map. Excuse me. From our homepage, so it's possible to go and find all of the different topics here. That's not really the most efficient way to do it. When you are a more advanced user, if we go back to the main page here, this advanced search opens up the same dashboard that's the default one for the body of knowledge platform. And you can see here, one of the things that I'll be talking about a little bit later are the idea that we have the different topics, the different content articles themselves, tags, definitions, references, learning outcomes. I'll talk about those a little bit more. For those of you familiar with the Living Textbook, and this might be just a couple of you in the room who really know it, an important thing for us is that you'll see in our URL here that we have changed it so this is no longer specific. We have the word current there is now going to stay persistent so that when we do our updates, people for the Living Textbook won't ever have to update their URLs before. And as of this morning, all of the DOIs for our topics now point directly back to this Living Textbook. So let's go back to that topic I wanted to highlight, this brand new one of adjacency and connectivity. If I view this topic here, what we have now is that this DOI here, every one of ours has a DOI. This now points directly right back to this site rather than going to our site, to our search and viz site, which was the behavior that happened up through yesterday, or this morning rather. So there's a lot of stuff about the Living Textbook that we are pretty excited about. We always have been. We want to work with this more. We still do want to work with the tools, but we're just going to have to do this in a more phased interval process than we thought we could at the beginning. So I don't want to do lots of deep demos about this site right now. I encourage you to explore it yourself. If I go back one more time to the home page here, this also, a lot of people will find this useful. We do maintain a color-coded 2-page list of topics PDF. This is still the one from the end of last year, but you should know about this 2-page PDF, and this was going to always give people an overview of all the different topics. And this will take us back to our UCGIS webpage, which will remind people that for now, especially at this time in the semester, we're going to keep up both of our platforms because we know that some people have
Eagles on TV.
Sorry, Karen, what?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Karen, you're not muted. Karen Kemp, mute your microphone.
Got it. Looking for it.
It's all right, Karen. I don't know if I can mute you from here. That's pretty funny that Karen's the one who, Karen's a regular Zoom meeting yet. There, Karen muted herself. The Viz and Search tool is still going to stay up. It's never going down. We just aren't able to continue to work with it while we are also maintaining the Living Textbook platform as our primary site to reduce confusion for our patrons. Okay, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint now. Ooh, that worked. I think that worked. Yeah, okay. So, let's talk a little bit about users right now for this. So people have asked sometimes about how much use the body of knowledge gets, and this is important for people making decisions about sharing it going forward. Share, sorry, you did not see that. Share this screen, share. Okay, are people seeing my DOI resolution slide?
Yes.
All right, sorry, thank you, Jeremy. I wasn't getting feedback. What we have here is just a quick snapshot of 3 different, as of just this past March and 3 years ago, same number of months, same sequence of months themselves. So this goes, the blue lines go from March 2022 to March 2023. The orange lines are March 2025 to March 2026. Depending on the time of the year, we know that it's academic use of the UCGIS body of knowledge is the most heaviest one, so it's not usually too surprising to see lots of peaks around September. And then, January, new semesters are beginning. There seems to always be pretty high things around March when maybe students start really looking at things in their semesters. We have always comfortably, we used to be able to say comfortably that we averaged about 5,000 hits, and these are going to be hits of the individual DOIs per month. We started using the DOIs in 2016. But what we really see, and I didn't find just the right data to make a graph to really show this, but we know that having the 2 years with the double platforms was confusing for people. We know that. Because what we really should have seen too is we know that there were there were more DOI hits in the past, but there are more DOIs to have content to be being hit now. Our content is almost completely final. Final. I mean, everything's always evolving, but we almost have expanded versions of the content for every topic with their own DOIs. So we really should be seeing more DOIs being hit now, and we're only seeing about the same. So we know that there are lower numbers overall. There's also always some um, times when we have passed 6,000 hits per month. People ask about bots. We know that also these are the data we get from Crossref from the DOIs. We know that some of these are bots, but they estimate that 15 to 20% might be bots hitting things, and the rest are unique hits that are not bots. One other thing I and these are only the DOI hits. Well, this isn't we know that we get many more than this. We don't have a very good way right now with our living textbook to really monitor traffic that's not DOI driven. So if anyone has from the search and viz sites, if they had the static URL, which is what a lot of faculty end up putting into their syllabi instead of the DOI, none of that traffic is being measured at all. So this is only when a DOI gets what's called resolved. Someone clicks on that 10-point blah 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 number and it takes you to the final site. So we know we could be getting more traffic, but we're not it's not just a handful of people looking at this thing every month. These are some things that I would say are more on the shorter term of what we're going to be doing now that we have made this commitment in the last 4, 6, 7 months just to focus on the living textbook right now. This is what we are working on next. In terms of those 414 topics, some of those are not what we call our topics. Some of those are actually what the unit aggregation, that a 2-digit code that's between a top knowledge area and an individual most granular level topic. So we're going to be expanding the content, the description in those. The original body of knowledge had really nice write-ups that described that level of knowledge, and we just have never used it at all. So we're going to be working on those. And as I said, John Wilson is expecting. I think he has confirmed authors for the handful that have been languishing unwritten over the last decade. We need to clean up our tags because tags we know are, especially the living platforms database and structure is really good for lots of linked data across it, but we need to clean up. We don't need over 1,000 tags for this. This is just a legacy of the way that our content was created and not being careful about encouraging authors to reuse existing tags. And we even have like some, American versus British spelling of what ought to be the same tag. The definitions, we used to have them be part of the topics themselves. The definitions are being pulled out of topics and transferred to a function within the living textbook platform, which is going to let it become a really nice glossary. So that's underway, but it's a work in progress. The references are a pretty interesting thing with the body of knowledge. Of our 350 or so topics, and altogether we have over 5,000 references. Those are 5,000, 5,100 unique references. there are probably five, but that doesn't mean that the references themselves are unique, but there are many of those that point to multiple articles. And that's one of the interesting things I'd love to have if some student out there wants to do a research project, if we have certain, not just seminal pieces of work. I mean, there are probably a dozen different articles that that cite Tobler's 1970 Detroit article that would have come up with a language for the first law of geography. Maybe there, I don't even know how many, but you can easily find that out. And it's really interesting to see what are the 100 or so references that have been cited in many ways across the few hundred different Bach topics. Finally, we still have learning outcomes. There, of course, so that would be 1,900 learning outcomes across all of the collection. Those also need to be cleaned up a little bit. Oh, I see. I didn't finish. I didn't finish writing what we want to do with the learning outcomes. They need to be cleaned up a little bit, and we need to make sure that they are in suitable format. And then those learning outcomes are important because that's what ends up serving a lot of other needs, like other curriculum building situations. Like the GISCI, for example, when they're working on their exams, they're very familiar with what our learning outcomes are as they develop exam content. And it's the learning outcomes that the people who created the body of knowledge first focused on, because understanding what you have as those really influences the direction of all of your content. So what it says at the bottom here for transfer from topics then become a glossary, that is, I apologize, that was not updated. We want to be able to do some learning outcome work to clean them up and to do some analysis with those. So those are some next steps we're going to be working on. Meanwhile, I keep talking about these different open source tools. These are the collection of open source tools which we were able to coordinate with the European group. Again, EO4Geo itself is wrapped up, but the same developers are working with the second or third or fourth generation of that type of work. It's now a Space4Geo, still very, very heavy in Earth observation, which our focus is not. But many of you on this call have heard me talk before over the years about how excited I am at the type of functionality that these tools offer when the content is complete and when it can be when all of the tools can be optimized for US specific situations, or at least less European focused than they are right now. Right now, the only tool that's really live is the BachVis and search tool, as I said. But the other ones really need some money and some people to work on getting them ready to be deployed for the US specific contexts. And UCGIS does not have the capacity to go with that right now. But that is something that I know that the organization cares about very much. We haven't abandoned these. We just need to find the right way to make it happen. What is happening right now is iGuide, meanwhile, under the directorship of Eric Schooks. Eric Shook is the one who's really at iGuide working on the convergence curriculum. So these are standalone modules focused on a geospatial data science, really a GeoAI heavy curriculum. And because we have the unique DOIs within there, a lot of these modules have their materials that link specifically to the body of knowledge. So this is an area that iGuide has been able to support the development of with the body of knowledge, and this will continue. iGuide itself, however, comes to the end of its regular funding in September 30th of 2026. We're in the final 6 months of iGuide right now. So the curriculum will continue to evolve, and we'll see what goes what goes on after the end of iGuide's formal amount of funding, but that we've had ideas that that's where we kind of are right now with the body of knowledge and the curriculum. It's really Eric takes advantage of the links that are there and they support it throughout. It's an opportunity to do more. So these are the types of questions that we think about a lot right now. How are we going to have a digital resource that is useful for as wide as an audience as possible? How do we get some funding now and into the future? One of the things that we all wonder about is being able to make sure the body of knowledge is dynamic enough that we identify and integrate our emergency competencies, knowledge, and skills. We know there are many stakeholders that we would like to work with that are really important for us. If we weren't having the right connections, the connections that we cultivate, for example, especially with GIS&CI, they're a very important partner for us. How can we make decisions going forward with that? One of the biggest things that UCGIS is struggling with is how to set up the collaborative governance structure for a sustainable future. And is this even going to be possible? And I'll tell you right now, what we really have is this group. This is the dynamic quad group. We've got John Wilson being the continue after 11 years of volunteer work as the editor. Me doing a lot of the platform work. Amy Rock, UCGIS's executive director, battling a lot of things. And fortunately, she's become the more technical expert doing stuff with all of our website DNSs and lots of things. And we're very grateful that we have this super developer, super helpful, informed, knowledgeable developer whose name is Michael, who's been able to really work with us to have the body of knowledge become useful for where we have it, where we are right now. So that's the end of what I wanted to present about. What I've got next is just a couple really quick poll questions. So I'm going to put up the next slide is going to be a QR code. And if you all could go to that, I am going to, in the back end here, go to the first question of the poll. See if I can do this and this all at the same time here. And I'm going to start this first poll. Poll is active for participants. Okay, let me minus this. And I'm going to hit the present button. Jeremy, I'm going to count on you to tell me if something just isn't totally working at all.
I see the poll on the app.
Okay.
I see it. Yep.
Okay.
Good. I'm filling it out now.
Try moving this over to here. Yeah, take a minute to think about it. You can just write one word. There are many, many people who are frustrated that our print to PDF, like print a formatted PDF is the one thing that they want for the body of knowledge more than anything else. And that is our developer has figured out some bugs, and very soon we will actually be able to print a formatted PDF. But I really hope that in the year 2026, that is not the one functionality for a body of knowledge that people need and want more than anything else. Okay, so yeah, comparing curricula to coursework. Okay, one more person's typing. We have some other polls here. Yeah, site navigation, we've definitely been working on this, but we know it's not something completely done. Okay. Well, that I'm going to turn all of these answers, these suggestions over to the UCGIS Board of Directors, and I'm sure they'll start working with this, with the inspiration we've got here. And now I'm going to stop. Let's see. Can I go to the next poll? So I'm going to go start the next poll. Ready? This one might be a little bit easier based on what you've seen today. How likely are you to use the BOK more frequently? Oh, good. Keep this one going up for another 30 seconds or so here. Okay. And the next poll, next and last one, and this is another one that's possible. Again, this was just on behalf of UCGIS to, and this doesn't have to be a, although I phrased it about telling UCGIS about a future body of knowledge. I think it's really important for the community as a whole to get a sense, to understand what needs to be done with a body of knowledge itself. What's the value that this has for the community? Because UCGIS has funded and donated lots of support for this over the years, and as a resource, if we shut down the servers tomorrow, would somebody create a new body of knowledge? Would it what's the need for this? And I think especially, I know we've been thinking about this with the role of, obviously, the role of AI. What is it really, how can UCGIS both leverage, how can we leverage AI and be able to keep leverage AI in in this resource, but also integrate GeoAI more into the content than it has before? So those are some things that are on my mind when I think of what I would want to tell UCGIS about a future. After this, if a couple people are typing, we'll see what they end up putting in, and after that, we can just have some open discussion. I didn't look at the chat at all. As I said, I'll wait till the one person who's typing now hits their submit button, and then we'll just have some discussion together. Rob Lemons would like me to elaborate a bit more on how you follow up upon the learning outcomes. That's a good and important question, Rob. I think one of our problems right now is that the learning outcomes themselves, for many of the topics, weren't written in a way that, well, a couple of different things about this. Part of this is a geo LLM based in part on the current BOK. That is really an interesting idea, and that's one of the things that iGuide has been exploring a bit in part. Our iGuide has a very mature, relative for LLMs, search agent that's part of its platform-iGuide-io. And there has been a lot of discussion about how we could take advantage of the body of knowledge. One of our challenges is that that authors hold the copyright for the digital version that is within the body of knowledge itself. Authors reserve the copyright for the use of all of their words in other ways. So we have a situation where we are not in a position to turn over our content directly into any other LLMs, period. We would have to really decide how we wanted to coordinate with our authors to use the collection as a whole. But that is something that we do think about and don't have an answer about yet. I'm going to stop sharing and talk a little bit about learning outcomes and any other discussion that people might like to have. One of the things, and Rob, you're welcome to turn your camera on if you like. One of our, or anyone else, if you're still here, thank you. Let's just I'd love this to be a group talk. The learning outcomes themselves are, contributed by 300 plus authors, not sometimes crafted in a way that educators might need or want learning outcomes to be. I mean, literally things like starting with the word understand, things that are not measurable. They don't really reflect, in many cases, they do not reflect what that content, what that article says. They think it's, I mean, the idea of is that a learning outcome after you've read something and learned about it from reading that topic? Or is this a general learning outcome that if anyone wanted to know about scale, then this is what you might want to do. So we've had ideas about rewriting them in a way and returning to the original authors and saying, we would like to revise the learning outcomes for your topic to be these instead. We also have, that's one type of thing. Another type of thing is that the levels of granularity are just totally diverse, they're not tied to any structure. Our cartography and visualization knowledge area editor did a fantastic job of having his authors start like at a lower level of Bloom's taxonomy and then go up to some more advanced ones that nobody else did. So it's just a huge mishmash. And I would not feel comfortable, none of us would feel comfortable turning over the learning outcomes as a whole right now and saying, hey, these 1,700 together are a really interesting picture of what GIS&T could be as a collection. So some thought needs to go into that, kind of like from a curricular intellectual perspective. And it's not but again, we've got 350 individual authors that we're thinking for. Amy, I'm glad you're here too. Amy and Jeremy, from the UCGIS perspective, if you have any comments, I mean, at this point, I'd love to hear anyone's thoughts or ideas. Yes, Jeremy.
Thanks for this presentation. Really cool to see all the progress that's been made recently and a bunch of the new additions and stuff. So very cool. You know what I would love to do is to take like a bunch of their syllabi from our program and dump it into the BOK and have like a little map of like the different parts of the BOK that align with what I'm doing. And I've seen it before many years ago.
Yeah.
Can we do that? Is that a thing?
Well, yes, we have it. Yeah, the functionality exists. I recently reviewed a paper that has someone who did that with a different tool, and I kind of like the way that their interface was. That's some of the open source work that we have put on a back burner at this moment because UCGIS, you've heard this refrain, doesn't have the capacity right now to emphasize that particular functionality with, yeah,
Yeah.
me.
That would be really cool. I mean, I've seen it done and it's so enlightening, you know?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I know. So I'm not the one,
So,
like I'm not volunteering to build it right now, so it's not a
well, you
critique.
don't have
It's
to.
more like a vision, you know, to make something like that accessible, I think would be somewhat transformative from the use of the platform from a higher education perspective. Just because, I mean, I use it a lot in my own classes. I just point my students to pieces of it, you know, read this. This is a great, brief, informative background on this specific topic. So it's really, really useful for that. And it just works really well in my classes for that. But from like a program assessment perspective, I think it could also just be so useful, you know, and I don't know, it's on my agenda. I'll just put it out there for anyone interested in using it in this particular way.
So, our colleagues at GIS&T have been putting together a syllabus repository as part of their development of the pre-GISP exam. And Jochen Albrecht, who is affiliated with UCGIS and also GIS&T, he's our representative to their board, has shared that with us in a draft form. And it's pretty darn cool. And I think that that's probably a huge first step in moving down that pathway, right? At this point, it's just kind of a searchable database. You could say, what does intro GIS look like at other universities? But I think ultimately it would be kind of neat to pull and see how many of them have BOK links in it, which things are they linking, et cetera. But at this point, I think that they've done a huge first step in that direction in collecting a lot of those syllabi, and I think they're going to continue to do that. So hopefully we can leverage our relationship with them and do a little more.
Yeah, Jeremy, the vision, what you described, yeah, I'll leave it at that right now. So, Sven, do you have one of the things that we know that some of the tools have been updated, those open source tools, in that you have a new generation of the ones that would do these types of things. Can you comment at all on these, on your updates?
Yeah, sure, Diana. Well, I'm very happy to say that now the visualization search tool is mobile responsive. So this is this was one of the comments that we took from you, and yeah, we made work of that. So now it's the case. We are also now experimenting with using large language models to extract data related with the body of knowledge from other sources. So we have already integrated that in our annotation tool. So if you remember, you can upload a PDF, any PDF, and then it extracts the text. And then in our previous version, manually, you could link it with the body of knowledge. So now we have a model behind it that automatically extracts suggestions. It's not 100%. As an author, you still need to confirm the suggestions and possibly add other ones that were not correctly extracted or were not extracted. But this would be a first step to what Jeremy was referring to how to like integrate it with a curriculum. So you could upload a PDF version of a curriculum, and then it will extract for you the body of knowledge concepts that are related. So this I would consider a first step, and I like very much the idea of Jeremy. So we might somehow take that on board and look into that, because as you know, we are also developing training materials. And the training material, of course, is also accompanied with some training actions, so delivering the material, and also some type of syllabus or some kind of, we can call it syllabus. So we definitely see that also useful for us, and we see a connection there. We are currently integrating the same system of an LLM that is extracting body of knowledge concepts from text into our other tools as well.
There's a prototype. Keep during my talk, you guys keep talking just for 1 minute. While I browse, I'm going to show you a link to a prototype of something too. And I know it, I mean, this has been challenging for UCGIS because we know that there are other groups like that type of functionality that we always have wanted has been available for a while. We just haven't had the right timing of funds and capacity, all the right pieces in place to put them together. Sean, while I browse to this as a user of maybe a user of this resource or who's somebody you think a lot about teaching and GeoAI, what are your thoughts on the BOK?
So you're asking me, Sean?
Yeah, Sean
Yeah.
Newsom.
So I mean, to be honest, I mean, I know this is partly why I joined in. I know about the BOK. I've never really used it. It's just so overwhelming to keep on top of everything. So just for background for people, so I'm a computer scientist. I've been heavily involved with the ACM6 spatial community, chaired that and done the conferences and stuff. And I also participate in the AAG GeoAI stuff. I mean, but one specific thing, I'll be hopefully develop of a sabbatical coming up in a year, hopefully going to develop some sort of new course in GeoAI. I'm at University of California, Merced. And so that's kind of definitely there. I would leverage the BOK and of course the iGuide stuff. So I can't speak, unfortunately. I mean, what I've learned, again, it's just so hard to keep trying to keep on top of what's going on in computer science and GIS. I've reviewed for the book BOK, but again, I haven't really used it. But I'm learning more, especially with this new interface. So sorry, kind of a non-answer there.
No, it's all right. I mean, that's perfect because we have we have wanted to reach out to users just like yourself, and I have a copy. It's like Song Gao has, when he was working with the group at Sven and Rob will know the group I'm talking about over in the UK. We have what we have these vertical knowledge areas, and Song had put together the GeoAI vertical knowledge area. And the idea at some point, and this is like maybe 2 years ago now, we were going to make a whole new 11th knowledge area within the BOK, and that would be around these GeoAI topics. But at this point, is that a vertical, or is GeoAI in this whole thing? Do we need a vertical of GeoAI, or is it actually integrated into these other existing verticals as a new horizontal, the same way that geocomputation in 2006 was a vertical, and then by 2016, geocomputation was horizontal. So
we'll answer this at the UCGIS meeting in June, right? AI everywhere.
I imagine that would get talked about there.
Diana.
Yes.
Maybe I can elaborate a bit on. We had the same struggle with the European BOK, and as we are basically having a hierarchy indeed, so that then you would create a vertical for GeoAI. However, there are also cross relationships possible, as it is kind of you can view it as an ontology as well, having the relationships to other concepts. So that would be the way out, not to have a vertical for a separate topic as GeoAI and make it not an isolated one.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
Rob, you put a question in the chat about the role of AI in creating content.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, Diana, do you want to speak?
I do have a thought on that. I have wanted for a while to think about I had wanted to use AI more, not in 9 of the topic areas, but I was keen on using AI in the domain applications knowledge area. specifically for something like this, John Wilson had struggled for many, many years trying to find somebody to write 2,500 words on GIS in the insurance industry. Okay. Well, I know that, that there's a lot of ways we could leverage leverage AI to
Mm.
work on an
Mm.
entry like that. Do we really need to nail down like the two people who in the world who might be willing to write 2,500
Mm.
words on GeoAI in the insurance industry in that situation? John has persevered in the absence of AI to procure authors, but that's an area where I think that going forward, especially with domain applications, I wonder about the ability to start with a draft of GIS in X and then have a draft and then maybe share it with 5 experts and say, what are your thoughts on this? And still try, instead of trying to find somebody who's going to write one from scratch, which has been doesn't make much sense. In terms
Mm.
of AI and the others, I don't have it's not something that we've pursued in any way. I really liked Eric Shook with the convergence curriculum he's got a PhD student right now at Minnesota who is working on some really interesting ways of using AI to do some of the work with his curriculum. He gave a VCO on this a
Mm.
month ago, and I could share with you all the link to it. It would be really interesting for you to listen to that. I don't, I'll share it with this group. I know we're at the top of the hour and
Mm.
everyone I know needs to go. Uh, so there is one thing, there is a person who just finished up their dissertation at Wisconsin in geography, and her dissertation looked at, um, oh, what is this, master's thesis? I've just pulled up her PhD. I happen to have a copy of her dissertation because I like it so much. And I'm going to show you one figure, if I can scroll to this one figure, because this one won't be embargoed for the paper that she also has submitted somewhere else. Okay, I'm going to share. So anyone who needs to drop off, please do. But for the six of us here, Karen, you might want to see this too if you're still actively watching. Again, I'm showing you the dissertation of this. Let's see, share. Share screen, share. Okay, so this person was looking at, the title of the dissertation is Graduate Curricula. I'll go back to the title in a minute, but the important thing is that she took the BOK and she did all sorts of interesting work with it. She took our 10 knowledge areas, but she did go through and subject courses that, the syllabi type of thing that she did online to look across all of the different BOK areas to see what came up and one didn't. What was really interesting, I don't know if you all know these so well, DC is data capture, but there are certain she looked at all of these different intro to GIS courses at what we call the level 2 domain, which would just be things within this particular type of data capture. But she also took the syllabi and went across a lot of different universities and took their courses and looked to see across. So this would be a whole bunch of graduate programs based on all of our 10 different knowledge areas. And this is an example of, our computing platforms was one of the slowest to be populated. And is this an artifact right now of, she writes about this in the dissertation too. Is it hey, Jeremy Temple's there. Is this an artifact about the fact that the content that she was reviewing when she made the pull of all of our content in maybe 2023 or 2024 was so inconsistently developed right then? So this is her dissertation. It's available online. I think you'd all find it super interesting because I'm not finding the exact picture that where Jeremy, she did do it with the kind of thing you're talking about. But I'm going to go to the very top of this. You can find this online. This is GI science education from faculty careers to student training, a dual perspective on academic and professional development, our master's thesis. 2025. I strongly encourage the group to be familiar with this work. So I'll stop sharing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think also, I'll just mention quickly in terms of the AI sort of sphere. Last summer at the symposium, we had a session on kind of thinking about some of these improvements that we've been making recently and sort of the future curation of it and everything else. And just out of curiosity, Erin Addison, who a lot of you may know, sat in the back of the room and popped open ChatGPT and asked it some questions about the VOK. And I think a place that it can be strong and useful for us, and probably not the generic free service one, but a closed curated system would be better, is identifying gaps. It came up with some suggestions for topics that were out of date or missing and things like that. That's very helpful in
Yep.
kind of targeting where we need to recruit authors. But also, I think, some of the curriculum stuff is helpful. I've played around with it. I do have a closed GPT for our university. And I was putting together a course, and I specifically told it, go out to the BOK, pull some articles for me related to this topic. And it was pretty good. There were a couple that were a little off topic, and there were a couple of others that I would prefer that it didn't pull, just because of my own knowledge of the particular stack that I work in a lot, which is the cartography stack. So I think that there's a lot of application for it in that context, in identifying, for those of us that are maintaining the content, identifying where we need to do outreach to get content updated or added, but also in some preliminary pulling together for curriculum, just going out there and saying, hey, find me things in the BOK that relate to this. Again, feeding it the PDF might be a way to help it along the process, but definitely, I think to be really strong, it needs to be customized, right? You can't just do it with off-the-shelf GPT.
Right. Well, that's where the iGuide platform, Xiaowen Wang's work with all of the computer scientists that have been part of iGuide has been really great because their GeoLLM, which is what they have, it's built on these big geospatial hypercubes, is quite robust for doing really good work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's ultimately what is needed is something that is trained and customized and set up,
right?
Not just a open market LLM.
Yeah, we also did some experiments. Like what you say, Amy, the results are really good, and it's also hard to resist. And then to say, okay, it should be human authored. But there are still we have some ethics, so to say, to keep
Absolutely.
up this let's say quality.
Yeah.
But there are certainly some ways, like what you say, identifying gaps. That is very useful, and also asking experts to write and to assume that they also do it themselves. It's another issue, of course. I mean, yeah, we should also have some guidelines then for the experts to how to use AI for their content.
Yeah, I think a lot of journals are starting to adopt policies about, first of all, whether or not they find the use acceptable, and then secondly, how you flag that you have used AI assistance or what have you in the writing of that article. And I think that ultimately, if we go down that path, as Diana suggests, where we have it draft a framework and then we farm it out to someone, I think there needs to be a tag on that article that says this was crafted with assistance from whatever, LLM.
Yeah. We do not even have that currently on our guidelines that we send to authors for this. I was hoping John was going to be on this today to ask about adding that, but we don't have. We have nothing on ours currently that has the authors describe their role. All right. Thank you all so much for your time. I'm going to bring this to a close. Any final comments for the iGuide VCO audience? And Rob and Sven, it's nice to see you all. I hope we can follow up. This is a kind of a big wave to let you know what we've been working on, but we'll see how we can continue to collaborate in the future.
Great to see the progress, Diana.
Yeah. And Amy, if there's something at the UCGIS symposium in June, we'll have to talk about what way, if any way, to talk about the BOK during that event as well.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye. Thanks.